Hello guys, the history lover. Welcome to my channel. Today I would like to deliver you a topic about the rise of Srivijaya, the division of Cambodia, and the appearance of the Sailendras in Java from the end of the 7th century to the beginning of the 9th century. Let's begin. The development of navigation, which was due in great part to Arab merchants and is documented by the voyage of Buddhist pilgrim and the increasingly frequent exchange of embassies between China and the countries to the south, inevitably gave a special importance to the southeast coast of Sumatra, whose outline then differ appreciably from those of today. Since this coast was situated at equal distance from the Sunda Strait and the Strait of Malacca, the two great breaks in the natural barrier formed by the Malay Peninsula and Indonesia, it was the normal point of landfall for boats coming from China on the northeast monsoon. Moreover, the fall in the early 7th century of Funan Kingdom, a state that had been the dominant power in the southern seas for 5 centuries, left the field open for the inhabitants around Sumatran estuary and harbor to develop control of commerce between India and China. It was thanks to these circumstances that the rapid rise of the kingdom of Srivijaya took place in the 8th century. First one, the beginning of the kingdom of Srivijaya at the end of the 7th century. When the pilgrim I Ching made his first voyage from China to India in 761, his first port of call, less than 20 days after his departure from Canton, was Fosi, where he stopped 6 months to study Sanskrit grammar or Sanskrit language. In the fortified city of Fosi, he says, there are more than 1,000 Buddhist priests whose minds are bent on study and good work. They examine and study all possible subjects exactly as in Madhya Desa or India. Their rule and ceremony are identical with those in India. If a Chinese priest wishes to go to the West to understand and read the original Buddhist texts, there he would be wise to spend a year or two in Fosi and practice the proper rules there. He might then go on to central India. We go to the next page, page 82. On his return from India, where he had spent 10 years at the University of Nalanda, I Ching spent 4 more years at Fosi, the years between 685 to 689, during which he copied and translated Sanskrit Buddhist texts into Chinese. In 689, after a brief voyage to Canton, where he recruited 4 collaborators, he returned to settle in Fosi and there wrote his 2 memoirs, one on the eminent monks who sought the law in the western countries, and the other memoir is on the spiritual law sent from the southern seas. In 692, he sent his manuscript to China, to which he himself returned in 695. During this last day, he noted in the second of the above work that Moloyu, where he had stopped and stayed 2 months in 671, is now the country of Silifosi. A group of inscriptions in Old Malay, 4 of which were found in Sumatra, three near Palembang, another at Karangbrahi on the upper coast of the Batanghari, and a fifth at Kota Kapur on the island of Bangka, saw the existence in 683 to 86 in Palembang of a Buddhist kingdom that had just conquered the hinterland of Jambi and the island of Bangka and was preparing to launch a military expedition against Java. This kingdom bore the name Srivijaya, which corresponds exactly to I Ching, Sili, Fosi. The oldest of the three inscriptions from Palembang, the one that is engraved on a large stone at Kedukan Bukit at the foot of the hill of Seguntang, tell us that on April 23, 682, a king began an expedition or Sidayatra by boat, that on May 19 he left an estuary with an army moving simultaneously by land and sea, and that a month later he brought victory, power, and wealth to Srivijaya. This text has caused much ink to flow. Some scholars have chosen to view this inscription as a statement that the capital Srivijaya was founded by an armada from the outside, perhaps from the Malay Peninsula, and some have even interpreted this inscription as meaning that the primitive site of Malayu was at Palembang, which took the name of Srivijaya following this expedition. It seems to me that this is building very fragile hypothesis on a stone that differed from other inscribed stones found in Palembang and on Bangka Island, only in the personality of the author of the inscription and the circumstances under which it was engraved. All we can say is that the events commemorated may have been considered important enough to merit giving a considerable wealth of chronological detail which other stones of the same type do not give. The king who in 682 set up this votive offering and some sacred places near Seguntang did so on returning from victorious expedition that earned Srivijaya kingdom new power and prestige. This anonymous king is almost certainly the Jayanasa who founded a public park 2 years later. On March 23, 684, at Talang Tuo, west of Palembang and 5 km northwest of Seguntang, and on this occasion had a text engraved expressing the desire that the merit gained by this deed and all his other good works should redound on all creatures and bring them closer to enlightenment. As for the three inscriptions, one of which is dated February 28, 686, we wonder if the conquests that they imply do not represent the continuation of the expansionist policy commemorated by the stone of Kedukan Bukit. These three texts, in part identical, deliver threat and malediction against any inhabitant of the upper Batanghari, the river of Jambi, whose basin must have constituted the territory of Malayu, and of the island of Bangka, who might commit act of insubordination toward the king and toward the official he had placed at the head of the provincial administration. The inscription of Bangka closes by mentioning the departure of an expedition against the unsubdued land of Java in 686. The land referred to may have been the ancient kingdom of Taruma, on the other side of the Sunda Strait, which we do not hear spoken of again after its embassy to China in 666 and 669. Taruma may have become the nucleus of the expansion of Sumatra influence on the island of Java, which is evidenced in the following century by the inscription of Gandasuli in the province of Kedu. Although King Jayanasa is named in only one of the 5 inscriptions, they probably all emanate from him. the military expedition in 682, the foundation of public park in 684, the affirmation of authority in northwest and southeast of the kingdom, and the sending of an expedition against Java. All this mark the various stages in the career of a king whom we are tempted to recognize as the conqueror of Malayu. Perhaps it was also he who sent the embassy of 695 to China, the first one from Srivijaya, for which we have definite date. Before this embassy, we have only a vague mention of embassy beginning with the period of 670 to 673. After it, we know of embassy of 702 and 716 and 724 in the name of kings Silitola Pamo or Sri Indrawarman, and of 728 and 742 in the name of the king Liu Tengwei Kung. Srivijaya expansion northwest toward the Strait of Malacca and southwest toward the Sunda Strait is a very clear indication of its design on the two great passages between the Indian Ocean and the Chinese Sea, the possession of which was to assure Srivijaya of commercial hegemony in Indonesia for several centuries. The inscription of 684, the first dated evidence of Mahayana Buddhism in Further India, confirmed what I Ching said about the importance of Srivijaya as a Buddhist center and about the various Buddhist schools in the southern seas. He asserted it is true that the Mulasarasvastivada, one of the great sects of the Theravada Buddhism that used the Sanskrit language, was almost universally adopted there, but he mentioned followers of Mahayana Buddhism at Malayu and record the existence in Srivijaya of the Yoga Caraya Bumi Sastra, one of the major works of Asanga, founder of the mystic school Yogacara, and Vishna Vadin. The prayer Prasada of King Jayanasa on the occasion of his founding of public park, expressing as it does the desire that all beings should obtain a series of felicities, the first one purely material, but the later one rising gradually to the moral and mystical plane until enlightenment is achieved, gives Luis de la Valle Posin the impression that all of this is in keeping with Mahayanist Sarvastivada. It has even been suggested that the doctrine reflected by this prayer was perhaps already tinged with Tantrism. The archaeology of the region of Palembang, although quite scanty, especially in architectural remains, confirm the evidence of I Ching and epigraph data. The sculptures that have been found are all Buddhist, with a definite predominance of Bodhisattva image, but on the whole they are later than the period under consideration here. After 742, the date of the last embassy from Silifosi mentioned in the Chinese text, our sources remain silent until 775. At that date, a Sanskrit inscription engraved on the first face of the stele of Wat Semu Mulang reveals that the Sumatran kingdom had established a foothold on the Malay peninsula at Ligor, where a king of Srivijaya, probably named Dharmasetu, had built various edifices, including a sanctuary dedicated to the Buddha and to the Bodhisattva Padmapani and Vajrapani. However, from 732 on, Central Java became of greatest interest to us. But before telling what took place there, it is important to relate the little that we know about events that took place on the Indo-Chinese peninsula from the end of the 7th to the middle of the 8th centuries. I think that's all, guys, about the rise of Srivijaya by George Coedes and the division of Cambodia and the appearance of the Salendra's dynasty in Java. Thank you for your kind attention. See you on my next video. Thank you.